Julie, I got a flag that says live on Facebook.
Yep, it's giving me, it's being a pain in my shorts right now. Hold on. Ah. All right, is it still live? Okay, all right. I'm ready.
Okay, are we ready to go then?
Yep.
Okay, everyone, I'm gonna go start the meeting. Law, zoning and permits for July 7th. It is 7:01. The members are all present. Mr. Baldinger, Mr. Triplett, and myself. First thing on the agenda is the approval of meeting minutes. Members, if you've had a chance to look at the March 24th, well, we'll do March 24th, 2020 special meeting. We could have a motion to approve those.
I'll move to approve the March 24th, 2020 special meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All members acknowledged approval. Those minutes passed. The next one is November 5th of 2019 regular meeting.
I'll make a motion to pass November 20th regular meeting.
Fifth.
Oh.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. All members approved. Do we have anything to add to the agenda for tonight? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Agenda is approved. Let's go right into the first item, which is open burning. Item A. I'm not sure who wants to take this. Chief, did you want to make a comment on this first?
I can. Is that all right with you, Thomas? Okay. This is an ordinance that's been on the books, passed in '87, dealing with open burning, and by that being the recreational fire stuff, and it's probably one of the most common calls that we see, neighborhood complaints and things like that. And what we've discovered over the years is there's just no way, from my vantage point, to enforce this ordinance, and we wanted to make some corrections that would make it easier for us to do our job. Two things to bring to your attention. Number one, 1511.5B, it talks about open burning, any open burning that's offensive or objectionable because of smoke emissions or when atmospheric conditions or local circumstances make such fires hazardous. The problem where we see there is every time we get a call on open burning, somebody's claiming it's offensive and objectionable, even if it's within every other ordinance or 25 feet setback. If they're doing everything clean wood, they're having a little barbecue, the neighbor still thinks it's objectionable and offensive. So I'd like to see that clarified as to who determines that offensibility. I think it should be the department, and then that helps avoid neighborhood disputes. But most importantly, 1511.06, I know Julie sent that out to you, where it talks
I sent them
about
both, yeah.
Okay, where a citation to any violation of the open burning law or ordinance may be issued on the site by any authorized law enforcement officer of the Galleon Fire Department. Herein lies the problem, in my view. We don't have any law enforcement officers of the Galleon Fire Department, and the police department's not a member of the fire department. So to me, it seems like neither one of us can enforce it because it references half of each of us. So, Thomas, if you want to build from there, I'm sorry.
No, that's exactly right. The chief and I have been talking about this. I think it's a pretty simple fix. My understanding is, Chief, tell me if I'm wrong, that currently the practice is you or your department people will contact the police department and ask them to go out. Is that correct?
That's been what we've attempted to do in the past, but again, Brian's never refused, but those guys are hesitant because of the wording of that ordinance. So we've not cited outside of using the EPA because of that.
Well, I am just suggesting that maybe it's as simple as taking out the words of the Galleon Fire Department there. It's just what reads on the site by any authorized law enforcement officer, which clearly puts it in the province of the Galleon Police Department, and take the fire department out of the picture. You, of course, would be notifying them of the necessity to go and do that.
Correct. We'll still work together, and sometimes they spot the open and burning infractions and call us. Sometimes if we need them to come down and help with some sort of enforcement, they've always been willing to do that. The only thing this gives us an avenue to the rare occasion that we have to cite, and it's not been very often, but right now we have no teeth. So exactly.
Yeah, but I think that's a pretty good fix. What I can do is, members of the committee, if you'd like, I can draft that up, and then also in the interim, before the next council meeting, I can talk to our city prosecutor just to make sure that she's comfortable with that language as well. But the bottom line is, in terms of enforcement, but the bottom line is, I think this is a pretty easy fix. We just got to get that language out of that particular enforcement section.
Thomas, how about for just as something to throw out here is under list citations by fire department, just the removal of by fire department, and then subsequently down in the after law enforcement officer, just take of the Galleon Fire Department, take those two things out.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chairman, I think you take the words by fire department out of the caption of 151106, and then take out of the Galleon Fire Department wording in 151106 at the end.
I think it fixes that part of it. What does the other members think on that part of it?
I agree with that. The only ordinance I got, I've only received is a 1503 where kindled fires is all I have. I don't have the 1511. I never got it.
I sent you a whole, it was with the stuff from the fire department, it's all in that one email.
3 things, burn ban. Wait a minute,
Yeah, those are different things for reference in case anybody had any other questions about the city's open burning ordinance. I had the state's Division of Forestry burn ban, kindled fire one you mentioned, Gail, and open burning stuff. Just giving you background information if you needed anything else. So that's why that's there.
well, only 3 things I've received.
The third thing is the thing for me with all the LOZP,
Right.
that's it.
The 1511, yeah.
1511's in there.
Huh?
Scroll down in that.
Oh, I got it. I see it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well. Oh, it's on down.
Yeah.
Okay. There it is. Okay. Now I got, okay. I didn't know where it was at.
Yeah. How did you want to fix the other one? Under 151105 B. You have any recommendations on that?
I would just put deemed objectionable by the members of the Galleon Fire Department or something like that. Whatever.
Yeah, that would work, Phil.
Open burning that is deemed offensive or objectionable by a member of the Galleon Fire Department because of smoke emissions or something like that.
Yep.
Yep.
Sounds good to me.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are the pros.
Because way it's worded now, everybody has a different opinion of
Right.
Offensive and objectable.
Right.
So So what's the language? What would be the language on that one then? Chief, or
It would be open burning that is deemed offensive or objectionable by a member of the Galleon Fire Department because of smoke emissions. You're just adding deemed by the Galleon Fire Department in that one to take it away from every citizen considering every fire offensive and objectionable. So we have somebody whose responsibility it is to deem something objectionable as opposed to every member of the community.
I was gonna say that sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
What do you think, Mark?
Well, I think that's fine. So just for an instance, Phil, if you went to a small campfire and it was emitting a lot of smoke and the person complaining had breathing problems, you could deem that objectionable.
Yeah, and we take in things into consideration, like, you know, when a fire first starts, it's obviously a lot more smoky than when it gets going. If they're within the ordinance in every other way, and it, you know, there's a time where it can always be objectionable, whether you're putting it out or you're starting it. But if it's material that is allowed by the ordinance, it typically isn't offensive or objectionable because it's clean burning wood and the smoke is going straight up. But if there's that 30-mile-an-hour wind and they're burning leaves, and even if they're, you know, within 25 or outside of 25 feet of the property, we could potentially deem that as objectionable because the wind's going to be blowing it in, you know, throughout the neighborhood and stuff. So it rarely happens, but yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Thomas, do we need to make some type of motion for this then, or what do you
Well,
want to?
You don't have the exact ordinance in front of you. What I'm going to suggest is, so we don't have to wait another month for it, if there's consensus, and it sounds like there is, I can draft this up and you could vote it on to the agenda at the next committee meeting, at the next council meeting. But you can tell council members that you had consensus on this at the committee meeting level.
Right. What do you think, gentlemen?
I think that sounds good.
That's good by me.
Okay.
Tom, why don't you do
Will
that?
do.
Okay, if there's nothing else on this, let's go ahead and move to item B is the rezoning of the East Side Fire Station property. Who would like to pick this up? I know this went through planning already.
Right, Mike, from the city's point of view, the administration point of view, excuse me, that the rezoning will likely improve the value if we were, and our plan would be to sell the East Side Fire Station. So the zoning, it being commercial, the appraiser suggested that we could get several tens of thousands more. It's been languishing around, and you know, that's the
Talked about it before already. Matter of fact, I think, Julie, am I correct? It is slated for a public hearing at next week's council meeting.
Yes, that's going to be interesting, but it's for Zoom.
Do we have any objections to that rezone as of yet?
No, I have
Here.
not heard anything. I know Tosh or Eric, one of them, sent out the letters that are required. Those have been sent out to the neighboring properties.
Okay, well, the last time I think this was visited in the November. I would like to see us at least do the west side of Murray Street along with it in conjunction with the Phonics or whatever that is, that seed place is, and the laundromat kind of. So if somebody wants to buy that corner lot, they can actually develop the corner lot and even possibly the next couple houses. somewhere down the road, they could develop that clear back at least to Walnut Street.
That's not how it was advertised, but
Well, that's what I brought up in the November meeting, and nothing's ever.
I advertised it how it went through planning commission.
Here's my thought, gentlemen. Because we've kind of been talking about this since, probably the November 5th meeting. Given the circumstance and everything, let's go ahead and get this one done and continue with the idea that possibly somebody else would be interested in rezoning out that way. I haven't heard anything from anybody.
Be able to existing zone, considering where the fire station sits? Or are we gonna be a spot zone, or was that gonna be a break in the zoning and end up being a spot zone? Because I'm not in favor of spot zoning.
Thomas has the information on that. I'll unmute you. Okay.
Sorry, Gail, I had the very same question. I looked at the zoning map last week to sort of verify what it was. It appears that across the street is the same zoning classification. I'm talking about across the street to the west. Is the same zoning classification as what's being proposed. Is that where you were talking about, Gail, or are you talking about further north?
West across Murray Street there. Yeah, we got that corner lot there where the house was torn down.
Right.
Corner of Murray and Hardingway. And then there's
Yeah.
two more. There used to be an old house trailer sitting there, which is gone, just a garage there now. And then there's two more houses. It was that whole parcel back to Walnut Street. And then that would interconnect with our fire station.
Oh, I understand, Gail, but you're talking about properties that are to the north of the fire station. Are you not? Sorry?
North of the fire station. That's just the residential. I'm talking everything west of Murray Street. Is that already in this zone?
Yes, it is.
It's already in. So
If which case, if this would not be spot zoning, if you've got it across the street, if it's the same zoning classification you're moving towards on this parcel. It didn't appear to be the spot zone for me as I looked at it.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't aware that that property on the west side of Murray Street there was zoned, what, commercial is it? Is that where we're going?
Yeah.
General commercial, GC.
Done,
Yeah.
and
So,
it's already taken care of if that's already done.
well, I'll verify that tomorrow and tell you, and I'll call you if there's a problem with that. But it seemed to me and I was looking at it with Matt last week, there wasn't going to be a problem.
If it stopped, with the, what is that, the green thumb or whatever that is there at across from Dollar General. If it stopped with this property and then became residential from there on, that concerned me because there's no way of connecting our fire station to that zone.
Right.
That's my concern.
Yep, I understand.
Okay. Other than that,
I can
no
work with
problem.
Thomas to get the ordinance completed.
Okay, so we really can't vote on anything tonight, correct? Or not?
This is like the last one. You have in substance, perhaps you have consensus on the way you want to move forward. If there's going to be a public hearing, the next council meeting, you're going to want an ordinance there too.
Yeah, it'll be there. Yeah.
That's the way we typically do it. So it would just be voted onto the agenda that night.
And I don't have a problem with that as long as we have time to get that done and get it advertised for the public hearing.
It's the public hearing's already been advertised. That's why we can't really change it from those two parcels. It's 5 and 6, I think.
But like I said, I'm not gonna be in favor if that fire station becomes a spot zone.
I wouldn't either, Gail, but I think because it's sat here for a while, we do have some interest in the property from the viewpoint of for the city. That's the reason why we kind of pushed it along a little bit more.
How pressing is this? How
That's-
pressing?
Here, I don't,
The mayor, oh, yeah, he's,
I don't, it's not pressing, it's sat since November, but I'm with Mike's point of view that let's move this thing along. Here's, because it's not just that one location. I think the appraiser is correct, and we could probably yield a more of a commercial bid when we go to advertise and sell it. So I'm in favor of getting that done. I don't want to make it so that we're having a sale so late into the summer or early fall that possible person acquiring it couldn't do anything before, say, the winter of 2020. So that's the only urgency.
If Thomas into that and verify what that zoning is on the west side of Murray Street there.
Yeah. I will do that, Gail. And if it's not be GC, but I believe it is.
Okay. Is my issue is resolved, but if it isn't, then
Then you have then there's a question. Yeah.
Hey, the corner, the one we acquired through the demo, through the land bank, that's deeds in our name. So if that has to be added in to make a more logical annexation, not a zone change, then we could do that. I really can't tell you tonight whether that residential property, it had to have been residential so as to have used land bank dollars. So
Yeah.
we may want to have that discussion Tuesday night in the public hearing, and then look at the best way to include that. It's kind of an odd, irregularly shaped parcel there,
yeah, exactly.
or in Harding Way.
Yeah.
So that might be that might be one that needs to be added. And I think my request would be to go ahead and proceed, and then we'll determine whether that city owned parcel needs to be included or not.
Think, gentlemen.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. How about you, Gail?
Like I say, I'm fine with it as long as we don't end up with a spot zone when this is over with, because
Right.
everybody brother's gonna want a spot zone if we start this, and I don't want to get it started.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay, Thomas, please check on that again. And
I will.
let us know if we have a problem.
I will. And if there's no problem, I'm assuming you want me to go ahead and draft up the ordinance, get it ready for Tuesday.
Correct.
Yeah, as long as we don't have a problem, yes.
Yes, okay, I understand.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on this then? Okay, if not, let's go to item C. Agricultural exemption for mowing. Who wants to pick this up?
Hey, Mike, I'll go ahead, and I'm kind of raising the issue. It's something that we addressed, I want to say 3 years ago, and may have been a little bit before that. And we thought we had resolved that by increasing the exemption from, so that at 7 acres, you could, anything over 7 acres could be considered agricultural. What we have, in my view, are 2 or 3, maybe 4 parcels, which are among the best developable parcels that are and adjacent to existing residential areas that are under this exemption allowed to grow under the premise that once that grass will be cut, it'll be used for agricultural purposes. The fact, in my view, my opinion, not the fact. My opinion is that those parcels that we could look at are not baled and they're not used for agricultural purposes. It just allows those property owners to allow their vegetation to grow, you know, 1.5 feet tall. And only because the city, through the building inspector, brings it to their attention, do we get it cut. So I don't want to get into a internet fight with these people, but if you lived in Hessenhauer, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm kind of tired of being jerked around by the property owner who won't develop it, but won't cut it like it's adjacent to a residential neighborhood. There's a couple of others in that general vicinity that I'm really talking about. The exception to this, if I might, Mike, would be the old Dawson School property. Now that's planted in soybeans, and I don't really have an objection to that because that's an agricultural crop. But what I'm trying to raise for us to zoom in on is letting it grow tall under this exemption, and kind of pushing our building inspector and our nuisance mowing ordinance to the limit. So I bring this up. I think it's something that council should think about. I suspect the way I've presented this, that you may hear from property owners who think I'm picking on them. I'm not picking on them. I'm picking on the fact that they don't cut their grass and the neighbors have to suffer the burden of that or bear that. So I'll stop at that.
Okay, I have a couple
Good
questions.
guys and bad guys out there. So
I have a question for you. The that agricultural exemption we have on the books now, how many acres is on the books now?
I think it's 7, but if Thomas has a better read on that, I think anything over 7, they can call it agriculture.
Okay. Yeah, is all these parcels that you're referring to over 7 or over?
Yeah, the ones that we have trouble saying this isn't, and it really is a couple of them are the old school lots.
Correct.
And I don't think anybody acquired those school lots expecting them to sit that way, but I really don't think it's the city of Gallion's responsibility to kind of allow that. We're being played a little bit like it's it's like a joke, and you live next door, you have a nice home, you cut your grass. It's not just the Wrenchville property. I would say by contrast, what the owner of Wilma Crawl, he doesn't push it. He cuts that grass between Boston and Crew. Now it may not be quite 7 acres, but it makes it a deterrent to future development, and I think council should think about it, be open for some feedback, and look at modifying it maybe to something like 5 acres, so that some of the bigger offenders of, it's agriculture, but nothing's grown on it, are reined in.
Well, I don't know that 5 acres is going to make it easier and more for more people to cause these problems. I think we would need to enlarge it to a larger acreage. And the other thing is, how are we going to determine the difference between somebody claiming to growing hay and baling hay versus soybeans, or possibly?
Well, I would say that beyond the obvious difference is after it's cut, if nobody comes out there and rolls it up into bales, or nobody comes out with a hay baler and bales it, then that's kind of the last time the city should allow that
We have to
excuse to be used.
Yeah, my understanding, that's the biggest excuse for letting it grow up. They're climbing, they're baling hay. And whether they are or not, who's to decide that unless they're doing it. And then of course, that's going to be an enforcement issue again. So yeah, I think we just, I don't know. This is
You're right, Kelly. You do need to raise the limit. I get that inverted. You do need to raise it to perhaps 10. And then that would rein in most of the ones that we see as difficult from an enforcement point of view.
Yeah, because I think the reason that's even written in there is because of the annexation out here on 61 towards Crestline, and then out there in that rural estate area.
Yeah, you're right, and I think it is.
So that's the only reason we have that on the books at all. So there, most of them people would be able to comply to the 10 or 12 acres. So
yeah, they aren't just letting the side yard grow up like they're, and critics may say I'm not targeting anyone, but if any of us live next door to that, they would be complaining, and in fact they do in those adjacent neighbors. And it's got, it eats up a lot of time right now with enforcement the way it is, sending them letters, contacting the mower, all those things. So I think from the enforcement point of view, if you raise the limit, and again, this is mostly for discussion, Michael, I think if you raise the exemption to 9 or 10 acres, I think we would cure that. But it's anyone who would be listening to this tonight that allows that to happen or has that next door will have an opinion about it.
Yeah,
and I think it's important to have a discussion.
I totally agree with the people that have those nice houses and inside limits, and we got property inside the city limits. It's really looking bad and really devaluating their property.
Right. Well, I feel pretty good. I think all of my properties have been mowed recently, so I can throw stones, I suppose. But anyways, it's an ongoing issue, but we have some chronics, and by raising it, I think we can get a bit of a discussion going. All of the properties that bother me have been cut because of enforcement, and it's a good time to discuss it. Once you get to winter, that becomes sort of an out of sight, out of mind issue in terms of addressing. So anyway, I don't need to belabor it, but I think it's an important issue to raise, and remedying it, I believe is both enforcement and perhaps a legislative change.
That's something the council probably needs to take a look at.
Yep. Yeah. That's why I brought it up.
Okay.
The other thing to consider, gentlemen, is sounds to me like also the need for proof that they're using it for agricultural. So if they're going out there and haying something, if they're really not picking it up, then that's a pretty good indicator that they're not. Maybe we need to put something in the ordinance that put some type of mechanism to show or to have some type of indication that they're actually doing that. Because out here in Dawson, the gentleman's got beans out there. It's pretty much a given that when he goes up to a certain height, he's going to clear it all, stuff like this. So that was kind of an easy.
Yeah, I agree with you, Michael. I just think the properties we're talking about, everybody is aware of them, and they've been cut in the last week or so. I've been, without picking on the owners in any way, I've been watching. Nobody's bailing that stuff. It's a little late for birds to be making nests. So. Anyway, I'll leave it alone.
All right.
Well, some research and see what we come up with on that.
Good. That was my intent. So just to get it discussed and get people thinking about it perhaps.
What do you think, Mark? Anything?
No, I think if you make it 10 acres, that solves all the problems. It's easier to enforce.
Yeah.
It's a nice round number.
Yeah. You're guys are right on that. Maybe we'll have Thomas look into how to word that. You know that.
Sounds good. I'll have something ready for you at your next meeting.
I'll throw out there just as a suggestion would be maybe putting language in there that it pertains to the real estate area, not the whole city of Galleon.
Yeah. Too.
Other thing that I could think of.
Hey, anything else on this?
No, Mike, that's good. I'm glad we brought it up, got a bit of a discussion, and I think as Thomas said, he can prepare some legislation. We can go from there.
Don't have anything more on this, gentlemen. Let's move on to the next item, which is D, tree ordinance. And I'm gonna, who would like to take this one?
Nobody. But it remains out there, and we passed legislation to clear the trees within our electric lines. But this issue remains out there, and in terms of the nuisance tree clearing issue, and so without having necessarily a resolution, I think it's important that we continue that discussion. If nothing else, when you look at the existing ordinance, it really is a carryover, or it's still there from the city manager era. During those years when council was the final voice, and they were truly in charge. And so take a look at that ordinance, the way it requires the building inspector and the city manager. And when we changed the ordinances, they didn't change the flow of how enforcement would go. It just changed the name. And so kind of take a look at that, and then it requires, after the mayor and I'll goof this up, I'm sure, but the mayor and the building inspector look at that, then they send that list of trees to council, and then council votes to enforce that ordinance. So it's, if nothing else, we ought to look at council and the building inspector and the mayor's role, and how you go from, you have a bad tree, to telling the property owner they have to take it down, or will take it down at their expense and put it on their taxes. That hasn't been a very practical remedy over the last decade or so. And when you look at the existing ordinance, it's got some kinks in it that probably need worked out. Whether or not we switch the responsibility for taking down those trees in the Devil's Strip or in the green space, whether it's the city or the property owners, which I know Mark has a strong view of, but the mechanism, if you will, the way the recommendation goes, if that probably needs to be looked at. So,
Well, my opinion on that, Tom, is I'm looking at 95-61-35. That's the last tree ordinance. Okay. And a public property shall include all other grounds owned by City of Galleon. Public tree means a tree or shrub growing in a tree lawn or any public place. So there's really no argument about the tree lawn.
well, I'm, I don't know what to say about that other than, refer that to the council, or excuse me, the law director. So I don't know if Thomas has an opinion about that or not.
I'm aware of what Mark's talking about. The question that needs to be asked, the threshold questions, because Mark, that that ordinance, obviously the current council changed to whatever they wanted to. But what you need to do is just answer that threshold question. Where do you want the responsibility to lie? Do you want the responsibility to lie solely with the city? Do you want the property owner to have some responsibility in this? If so, is it the kind of thing where you're going to want to be able to take it down and, as the mayor said, potentially have it put on their taxes? That's the question. That's the threshold question you need to ask, is how do you want this handled? Ordinances can be changed to address whatever you want.
I understand that. Okay. But how many of those trees in the tree lawn in the city do you suppose people actually planted that didn't just grow from seeds?
The little ones, I suppose, could happen, but the big expensive old ones in the older part of Galleon, that becomes kind of those great big old oak trees that are hollow in the center, and there's some beech and some other species, but that's where I think if there's conflict, that's where the dispute would arise. Other thing I want to say real quickly, back to the ordinance that Mark, there's that ordinance that Mark mentioned, but there's a couple of other ordinances that relate to this, and citing the code citations probably won't help, but there are a couple of other ordinances that don't assume the responsibility of the ownership or responsibility for maintenance of those trees on the city.
That's correct.
Yeah.
They're in conflict. We have ordinances in conflict.
Yeah. And so the numbers, Thomas, so I don't have to quote them to you, but I think that's the issue. I have no expectation, Mike, that we'll resolve this tonight, but we have three ordinances that have been passed that are, as Thomas just said, kind of in conflict with each other. And then there's this procedural thing. We did the best we could when we took all the Galleon codified ordinances and kind of edited them. Where it said finance director, we plugged in auditor. Where it said where it said city manager, we plugged in mayor. This is one of those that, gosh, when you look at it specifically, you kind of scratch your head, because I really don't think council wants this process to come to them and then they vote on a list of trees that are either the city's responsibility to take down, or we tell the property owner, thou shalt take those trees down. It's a difficult, so taking a look at that, how that flow chart works, and without trying to be, this is the worst thing that you would want to be power hungry on in any way. I don't want more authority here, but the way that authority is really under the existing ordinance kind of sits on council is something that y'all ought to look at as we try to untie this knot. So it's the issue of the conflicting ordinances, and then it's the issue of how we go about determining which trees get cut down, whether it's private funding or public funding. So anyway.
My question for obviously we're not going to decide this tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas, would be to, if you would, gather those different ordinances together, and if you could make those available to the other members.
Sure. Yes.
Obviously,
You already have a document like that, don't you, Thomas?
Yeah, we already have. Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, if you could distribute that to the other members, and we'll get a chance to look at it, and this will be agenda for next meeting. Obviously, this one I'm looking at is from like Mark said, from 95. So 25 years, it's probably,
Yeah.
what do you think, John? Good idea to start out with?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to get started with. The only thing I want to be real careful about is if we do decide to make it landowner's responsibility, I don't want to be putting a burden onto somebody with the extra financial burden on something that they didn't plan. If they planted it there, it's going to be hard to determine. I mean, all I have to say is they didn't plant it there, and there's no way of proving whether they did or did not. But they got a lot of trees that they didn't. The older trees that the mayor was talking about that they did not plant there that are becoming hollow and dangerous to our power grid and what have you, and maybe even the neighbor's property that need to get taken care of, and it may create a financial burden on there that they really can't afford if you start attaching their taxes.
Right.
So we've got to really, really be careful about.
Well, I agree with that. It's ugly. Twin on this one is the sidewalk ordinance. So the areas that we're talking, that Gail's talking about, where you have, let's say an older homeowner or a landlord owner certainly didn't plant the tree. That there oftentimes is a heaved up sidewalk next to some of these big old, once were beautiful, but now are becoming a little more dangerous trees. So as we address this, I think it's a good time to look at it. We may want to take a look at the sidewalk ordinance, because I know the building inspector as well as Nikki and myself, we don't get any particular pleasure out of not strictly enforcing the ordinance, but we can see some of these boomerang effects if we strictly enforce both this tree ordinance as it sets and the sidewalk is kind of an accompanying issue. So
I agree with that. Yeah.
Mark, point you on any lawyer, if you go to make them take down a big old tree, somebody who wants to hire a lawyer instead of a tree trimmer or an arborist would point to these conflicting ordinances, and that doesn't help remedy the underlying situation. So anyway, thanks for listening.
You're right. We need to look at probably all this in one kind of a package thing because they're interrelated. So let's start with just seeing what's out there and how it's worded and everything, and go from there. Because they don't want to put an undue burden on somebody that is now elderly and maybe on a fixed income and stuff like this.
Quit talking about me like that, Mike.
So, what we'll do is, if Mr. Thomas will send that around to everybody, and we'll start working on it. And this will, like I said, this will be an item on the next meeting agenda, if that sounds good to you.
Sounds good to me.
Yep.
Is that okay, Mark?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. If we don't have anything else, go ahead and item E, airport grant. I'm assuming there's a need to get this taken care of.
Yeah, I think Nikki, like if Julie would, I'll put the pressure on Nikki to go ahead and speak for this. I'm not real
She
knowledgeable.
unmuted herself. She's
Yay.
good.
I have a microphone tonight.
All right. Go.
Yeah, I know this is not technically the right committee for this, but there's a deadline of the 15th to apply. There have been some changes because of the CARES Act and I don't know how exactly it's impacted this, but instead of the ODOT portion of the grant that we apply for, it's typically 95 and 5. So 90% FAA, 5 ODOT, 5 local funds. This year, next fiscal year, the project will be funded 100% by ODOT. So this is the application for us to do our annual project, which this year we have identified as it's an automated weather observing system. So it will send out notifications to pilots about weather conditions in the area. And
Uh, we don't have any legislation written for this yet, do we?
what I sent to Julie was the application.
I didn't get the application. I only got the thing about it. I didn't get what we were applying for.
The details of what we're applying for are not in there, but the application procedure, they do it all online now. There's no paper
Yeah.
application.
I don't know how much, or I knew but I don't know how much we're applying for or anything.
Yep. The engineer should have an estimate to me this week.
Okay.
From what I've seen online, they're anywhere between $150,000 and $200,000. So,
Okay.
but 100% picked up by ODOT this cycle.
Cool.
Okay,
I'll
so
note that on, but yeah, as soon as I get that information, I can get the orders done.
Yeah,
I've got it mocked up with, blanks and X's for dollar amounts and stuff.
Yep. And I'll get those like I said, I've asked the engineer what his ballpark is, and he's supposed to get me something
Okay.
quickly.
okay, well, yeah, I was gonna say, so we don't really have anything to vote on to,
you don't.
but like we mentioned in previous, I believe, I'll check them, gentlemen, what do you think? Go ahead and have a consensus on this.
I'm
Go ahead.
thinking, I got a feeling I'm thinking exactly what you're thinking. I think since we don't have anything, I think they need to go ahead and draw it up and let us go ahead and vote it onto the agenda for Tuesday night, next
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Yep.
Because this really isn't the appropriate committee for this. But since there is nothing, we should just go ahead and vote it on the agenda. I don't think I'm going to see any real problem with this. I don't know what it would be, without seeing what's written up, but
Sure.
my consensus is it's probably going to be okay to accept this airport grant and go forth with it. But we just need to vote it on the agenda for next meeting.
Right. What do you think, Mark?
I'm good with that.
Okay, so Thomas, if you will do all the necessaries, I guess.
Yes, I have a very long list for Tuesday.
Yeah.
And again, I know this isn't the right committee for it, but I wanted to get it so it wasn't one of those surprise issues. So I wanted to at least get it in front of some of you so you know it's coming. And again, with it being 100% funded this year, that's
That's a big plus.
yeah.
Does it still bind the airport like the FAA grant does, or does it work differently?
Say that again.
Does it still bind like for the 20 years?
Yeah.
Or does
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah, it's,
they're
I
guaranteed.
thought maybe it worked differently since it's all
No,
100% ODOT.
No, they've both told me we're never getting out of the airport business because of the state and federal funds that are involved out there. So
Yeah.
like it or not, we're going to have an airport forever.
Exactly, and so I don't really see an issue there, and I like the idea if it's 100% funded. I don't think it's a major issue to just go ahead and get it ready and vote it on next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thomas, if you do that, then
Yes.
we
Already mocked up, about ready to go. So
so is there any other discussion on this? If not, do we have any other business?
Mike, I have one more thing to bring up from last November's regular meeting. I also in that meeting brought up the issue about the cul-de-sacs and the number of footage that I can't remember exactly how it was written in the ordinance, but there's gotta be, supposedly in our ordinance, you can't have a cul-de-sac on a street that's less than a certain amount of footage, like, I don't remember, it was 600 feet or what that was.
Over
Uh,
a certain amount, over a certain amount.
Over, yeah, it has to be over that amount before you're allowed to have a cul-de-sac. I brought up that we need to look at that ordinance and modify that and take that footage out of there, because we got way too many streets in town that isn't complying, and it constantly becomes an issue every time somebody wants to do something. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thomas, can you also send that out to the members? And Gail, if it sounds good to you, what we'll do is we'll definitely put that, or send us that information, and we'll get that taken care of at the next committee meeting.
yeah, that's kind of what my goal was, to take a look at it for the next committee meeting and see if we
A really
can.
good idea, Gail. It's a really good idea because some of the most developable parcels, as we look at future housing, you can envision them as not through streets, but cul-de-sacs. And heck yes, you'd like to have them not be constrained in how many feet the length of the cul-de-sac. So it's a good thing to be looking at. I'm glad you mentioned it.
That was kind of the consensus back in November when I brought this up, but we haven't, with the COVID and everything going on, we haven't been able to act on it. And I think it's good to
Really
act on.
good idea. Really good idea.
That's a good idea. Julie, sure that is on the agenda for next
Yep,
time.
I've got the trees, I got the sidewalks, and I got the cul-de-sac all for next agenda.
Okay, okay.
And I can hardly wait, Michael. Just please invite me, okay?
Fun.
Yeah.
I think we made the statement back there around the first of the year that Laws and Ordinances is going to have a busy agenda coming up this year.
Yeah. You're
Just got
right.
waylaid.
Is there anything else for any other business? If not, next meeting, August 4th at 7 o'clock. Hopefully we'll be meeting in person, but chances are we're going to be doing this again. So, and
I
with,
have no idea.
and with that, if we have a motion to adjourn,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Members all agree, motion passed. We are adjourned at 7:58. Thank you, everyone.
Yep, have a good night.
Night, everybody.